Laura Malenkoff. We had her last year for the first time, and she's doing a beautiful, beautiful job. I wish she was here, but she just went out for a minute. Oh, there she is. Round of applause for Laura Malenkoff. Thank you so much. It's really, really beautiful. I know it's in the background, but everybody noticed and everybody was asking, so thank you. Our next speaker, which I'm sure everybody noticed and everybody's waiting for, she came earlier today, and I just want to say that I was just blown away by her personality, her character. Beautiful woman, really. And I heard about her again from Ms. Shachman, thank you. And we called a few places just, find out if it's a right fit for our community. There was not one person or one shlucha or one person that took her that did not just say amazing things and said, Sterni, I promise you, you take her, you will not regret her. So I'm confident that everyone will be very inspired by her. This next person, I'm so sorry. Okay, our next speaker of the evening is former Lieutenant Commander Lori Lands of the American Army, who served multiple tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Persian Gulf, and throughout the world. Along her many journeys, she has erected a giant Hanukkah menorah in Saddam Hussein's palace in Baghdad. She celebrated Pesach in Saddam Hussein's hunting lodge. She arranged for a kosher Megillah reading in the hills of Afghanistan, and so much more that she will tell you about. I'm not going to spoil everything. Lori and her husband Moshe were also the only rabbi in Rebbetzin ever to be deployed to the war by the U.S. Department of Defense. And while stationed in war zones, Lori will tell us how she upheld her duties not only militarily, but also as a Jew, despite the obstacles she faced. I present to you Lori Lands.
Hello! Is anybody watching this fire here? I know, I'm watching it. It's so nice. I get to be by it now. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Should I speak really loud so they hear me across the street? No, don't do that. I love that. No, I love the fire. It's good. It's not good? It's so nice. I think it's good. But that's acid, so I wouldn't put... No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right, I'll move all this. Well, hello, everyone. First of all, before I start, I just want to say to Rabbi and Rebbetzin that Holtzberg, what a beautiful shul. I know, it's nice. What a beautiful shul. Hopefully we'll be in Mashiach with Jerusalem before this night is over. Amen? But if not, I'll come here next year. You'll have a big place, and it's still going to be too crowded because you have so many people. So it's so beautiful meeting the Holtzbergs. First of all, I'll tell you about my military uniform, but before I do, now you're going to have to listen to the questions, okay? You got to listen carefully. Is there anybody here who has served in the United States military? Just me. Okay, now wait. Is there anybody here who has served in the Israeli military? Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Yay! Wow. Wow, the U.S. military is in trouble here. Okay. Is there anybody here who are parents or grandparents of those who have served or are serving in the Israeli military? Here. This is unbelievable. Wow. So we got a lot of military people here. I won't even talk about the military. No, I'm kidding. So anyway, did I miss anybody? Oh, wait. Is there anybody here who served in the Russian military? No, because I usually have. I usually have a couple people. Okay, very good. Did I leave anybody out? South African? No? We're good? The what? No, the Israeli. Okay. All right. Anyway, let me tell you about... What's that?
My grandfather served in the British.
In the British Army. Wow. Yay! We're usually on the same side. All right. So anyway, I'll just tell you quickly about my uniform. Basically, I was in the U.S. Navy as a lieutenant commander, but after 9/11, I was in the sand a lot. I was in the dirt a lot. So I was on board ships. I've done that a lot, but mostly I was in the dirt. But when somebody looks at me and they see these stripes, then they know I was a lieutenant commander. It's not very high. It's like a major in the Army. A couple years ago, I actually hit my head and I had a brain bleed. And that's how I gained weight. And it's taken me a little while to recover, but I have a lot of surgery here. So I tried putting on helmets and I couldn't do it, so I had to leave the U.S. military, and now I get to be my husband's wife, which is a good thing. But if somebody sees me, they know that I was a lieutenant commander. This just basically means things that I've done in the U.S. military. So somebody looks at me, they say, oh, she's been in Iraq, Afghanistan, oh, she shoots really well, she's been with NATO, she's has these awards, that sort of thing. So they might actually ask me a question. I'm letting you know right now, all of you, if you have ribbons on everything you've done in your life, it'd be literally all over your front and back. So it's not that big a deal. They just do this so people will know what we've done. And then this here just means that I was an intelligence officer in the U.S. military. And I know you think intelligence sounds smart, but it was just basically me finding some bad people for special forces to take care of. That's all it means. It just means that I help find some bad people. So anyway, that's good. Am I done? Should I go home now? No? All right, let me just turn my page for a second. So basically, they've told me that I should speak here for about 3 hours. Is that okay? Oh, is that wrong? It's not 3 hours? You'll stay a little bit. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll tell you my stories, and then you leave when you want to leave, okay? But basically, after 9/11, we were told that we were going to be very active duty in the U.S. military, going a lot to Iraq and Afghanistan and that sort of thing. And I actually was in Iraq during the initial call in 2003. And then in 2005, they told me that I needed to go back to Iraq. And I went to Fort Bliss, Texas. Do you all know where Fort Bliss is? It's down on the south near the Mexican border. Very hot. And I was there for about 6 weeks getting ready to go into Iraq. And 300 of us actually flew into Iraq. You know, you guys could all sit down. It's lots of fun places there. So you guys, we all flew into Iraq. There's 300 of us, and we have our sea bags, our green duffel bags, the military bags. We're walking off the plane, and I hear a kid yelling my name. I'm thinking to myself, this is a young boy. He's like 18 years old, right? 18 years, a kid. And I'm thinking to myself, he couldn't have even been here in 2003. He's such a young boy. So I went up to him and I said, you're calling my name? He says, yes. Now he could see my name is written on my uniform. It's not this uniform. It's the Army camouflage uniform, and my name is on there. He says, I need to see your ID. And my last name was Zimmon. Nobody else has that name. I go, okay. So I had my pocket, and I pulled out all my top secret ID, and I showed him all my top secret. He says, you can't go with everybody else. You need to come with me. So I said, okay. So you have 300 people, generals, everybody, all the way down to privates, carrying their bags and going to the green zone in Iraq. And I was going with him in a Humvee to Camp Victory, where General Casey was running the war. So it wasn't a small base, it was a big base. And we're driving around and around until we get to some dirt roads. And then we stop at a little shack. I don't know if you know, because of my age, I could tell you, Green Acres, the TV show Green Acres. So some of you know, right? Green Acres, like a tiny little shack. It looks like a hut. And I'm actually met outside by a colonel. Now, back then, I was a junior officer. Why would a colonel? I should be having a sergeant or a junior officer meeting me. A colonel, he says, the colonel looks at me and goes, hey, Lori, how are you? I said, fine, sir. He says, listen, come on in. I want to show you what you're going to be doing. I said, okay, sir. So we start walking around, and it's exactly what you would imagine a war zone office to be. It's basically dirty, dusty, and people are doing their jobs very well. So you have like a board with 2 computers. And he says, this is what this team is doing. And they're telling me what the team's doing for the year. Then they're saying, here's a board with 2 computers and people are on it. And this is what this team is doing for the year. And then he's showing me my board. He says, your partner is on leave right now. When you go to war for a year or 9 months or over, you get to go anywhere you want for 2 weeks. So he says, your partner is on leave. He'll be back in a couple days. And here's what you'll be doing for the next year in Iraq. Now you have to understand, it's 2005. There's explosions. There's everything going on. I'm listening to this, and he's telling me what my job's going to be for the next year in Iraq, but I'm not listening to him. Not even a little bit, because there's 2 computers, and above this computer here's a little shelf, and there's a Siddur, a prayer book. And there's a Tehillim, the book of Psalms. And there's a Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, the army knows me, and they want me to be happy. No, the army didn't know me. They don't want me to be happy. They never want me to be happy. I'm letting you know right now. So I said to him, I said, Colonel, sir. He said, yes, Lori. I said, sir, I have to be honest with you. For the past minute or 2, I've not been listening to you. And he gave me like a look like, how quickly can I get rid of this girl? And I said, sir, my partner, my partner who's on leave, may I ask you, is he Jewish? He says, oh, Chime? Sure. He wears a box on his head and a belt on his arm every single day. So Chime is Chaim, and he's from Muncie. So Chaim came back a couple days later, and he asked me, so what are you doing to keep kosher? Now back then I was very thin. I'm not heavy like I am now. And I said to him, well, to be honest with you, I've been eating Cocoa Puffs and bananas for the last few days, so I'm a little hungry. So we go to the back room of this place where I was at, and he opens up these 2 doors. It is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. It's basically kosher food in Iraq, in Baghdad, with the heating and the fry pan and all the food. And he says to me like this, the ladies at Young Israel in Muncie knew I was here, and they were sending me kosher food. What if I tell them your level of kosher food, and they'll supply you for the next year? And that's how I kept kosher in Iraq. That's my way of telling you, if you want to do something, if you want to keep kosher, if you want to keep Shabbos, if you want to wear a sheitel, if you want to wear dresses, if you want to do anything you want to do, God will always help you out. Always, always, always. And this is how I found out 2 days into my tour in Iraq. And that was Chaim, that was Chaim. I actually ran into him a couple years ago. He's married with 6 kids, Kananahara. So anyway, I was working. Are you all doing okay? You're okay? All right, good. I just want to make sure we're all good. We're warm now. I'm actually warm right here, right by the candle. It's very good. So I was working at Victory, but I was living at Forward Operating Base Slayer. Are you recording me, by the way? Why? You're welcome to record, just don't put it online, because I want to say some stuff. So say it to your 14-year-old, that's perfect. Beautiful. What's your 14-year-old's name, son? What's his name? Hello, Eliyahu. Okay. So I was working at Camp Victory, but I was living at Forward Operating Base Slayer, which is about 3.5 miles away from Victory. Does anybody know how the U.S. Army wanted me to get from Fob Slayer to Victory? Come on, one of you must know. Hitchhiking. Who said hitchhiking? Yep, hitchhiking. I know. It sounds really dangerous, except if you realize I had 160,000 coalition forces, right? So it's like I wouldn't even do this to Americans. It's like Australians, New Zealanders. This is how I would go. And that's how I'd go to work each day. Now let me tell you how it worked. I would have to go through a tunnel, And at the end of the tunnel, I would start hitchhiking, and that's how I'd get a ride. That's how I'd go to work, and that's how I'd go home. They put me at the tunnel. But you have to understand something. We're talking about Iraq in 2005 and 2006, and a lot of people were dying then. And right above the tunnel was a place called Route Irish. And Route Irish is where they had improvised explosive devices. And what would happen is the Iraqis would blow up American vehicles. The Americans would be injured or killed. And then when other Americans go to help those injured or killed, that's when they would come out with their guns to start fighting. This was a very dangerous situation. So I would be walking through the tunnel, which is fine. Now, you can't do that at night because when you walk through the tunnel, you could see two Humvees, one going in one direction and one going in the other direction, which is fine. Because if I'm walking through the tunnel and I know there's a Humvee here and I see another Humvee coming this way, I'm either going to run behind me or run in front of me to get out of the tunnel. Because nobody wants to get a Purple Heart, which is a medal for being injured in a war. Nobody wants that. But if you are going to get a Purple Heart, the last thing you wanted to say is, she was hit on the side of her head by a side view mirror. You just don't want that. So I would run back or forth. But because we had the IEDs at night, the Humvees would shut off their lights, lower their engines, and go very slowly through the tunnel. So none of us would know when there would be two Humvees in the tunnel. Do you all understand what I'm trying to say? So it was very dangerous in the tunnel. Now there's different ways to go to synagogue on Shabbos. Some people walk, some people drive. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. I happen to be the type of person that doesn't drive on Shabbos. And Rabbi Schranz, who's now living in the Philippines, he was running Shabbos at Victory on Friday nights. And so I couldn't go through the tunnel at night because it was too dangerous. Do you understand that? So I can never go to Friday night services. I know some people here, I don't know how it is here, because in Georgetown you're very close to the shul. But many times I've been speaking and the shul is a little bit further away for some people. And maybe they don't want to go to shul. Maybe they're thinking about friends they could be with, television they could watch, different things they're thinking of, parties. But when you're in the U.S. military and you're in Iraq, all you want to do is go to shul. You just want to go to the synagogue. I don't even care if we go and just talk about lox and bagels. That if that's what somebody wants to talk about, you just want to be with Jews. It's the most beautiful thing. And so it was very difficult for me that I couldn't be with Jews. But a couple weeks after I got there, a few weeks, it was already 2005, it was Rosh Hashanah. So I actually was able to walk, not at night, but during the day to Rosh Hashanah. And I walked in, and you have to understand the synagogue was between the Tigris and Euphrates River. Rabbi, what's between the Tigris and Euphrates River? The Garden of Eden. Can you imagine? You know, Rosh Hashanah is, I guess it's a new year, but it's like 3 New Years that we have here. But Rosh Hashanah is really the 6th day of creation, when God created man. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. So here we all are, hundreds of Jews in Australian and New Zealand and English and American and so many Canadian, so many different uniforms, praying to God, the same prayers you pray, talking about Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve. The 6th day, we're actually literally where the Garden of Eden should be. It was the most beautiful thing in the world. And my father, I remember saying to me, gosh, Lori, it must have been so hard for you. I said, Dad, when in the world am I going to have a chance to pray in the Garden of Eden on Rosh Hashanah? It's the most unbelievable experience. And then 10 days later was, come on everybody, let's get going here. Yom Kippur, yay! No, Yom Kippur is actually a joyful time. I know a lot of people think Yom Kippur is so sad. I don't understand why. It's spiritual, and you just want to be forgiven and loved, but it's the most beautiful thing, Yom Kippur. And so I actually walked to Yom Kippur in 130 degree temperature. Have you been in 130 degree temperature? Well, let me tell you about 130 degree temperature. I had 65 pounds on me because they had full battle rattle. So I had a metal helmet, the vest, I had my M4 rifle, my M9 gun, all the rounds that go with it. I couldn't drink. And let me tell you, I was just as nervous then about not having coffee as I am here. And I literally was walking. This is how I walked 3.5 miles. I'd be like, it was so tiring. I finally get to shul, and there's more people there than on Rosh Hashanah. Now, it's very interesting about Rabbi Schranz. Mitchell Schranz is a great rabbi. He grew up here. But every 15 minutes he would say, we're going to take a break. Literally every 15 minutes. So I happen to be the type of person that likes the curtain in the middle of the synagogue because I'm with people all the time, men and women. But when I'm praying to God, I would just like to be by myself praying to God. And then that's for like 2 or 3 hours. And after that, I'll be with everybody else. So I just like the mechitza. I just like the curtain. But there was no curtain there. So I said to myself, I don't care. I love being with Jews. So I went into the back of the synagogue and in the corner. And then we were all praying. But I noticed there was a man in the front who had the tallis over his head. And he was doing like a Richard Simmons type of shuckling, like you like exercising, the shuckling back and forth. And he was banging himself. So, the Al Chetz on Yom Kippur, you make a fist and you go like this. So for me, I go like this. You listen to the Holtzbergs, but for me, I just go like this. Why? For an entire month, I've been asking God to forgive me. I've been giving money to charity. I'm doing everything possible so that maybe God would forgive me and my friends would forgive me, my family. So by the time Yom Kippur comes around, I'm actually just praying to God saying, oh, Hashem loves me. I'm his daughter. I'm sorry I did this, but I know that God knows I'm not perfect. This is how I do it. This is how the man in the front with the tallis over his head was banging. I can't even do it because I have my ribbons, so I'll do this. How many Al Chetz are there? A lot. There's a lot of Al Chetz on Yom Kippur. I think it's like 195. I mean, you are just doing some. I couldn't believe it. So Rabbi Schranz says, now we're going to take another break. So I figured, I'm going to go see who this guy is. He's going to take his tallis off. And I'm going to see, first of all, if he's a general. I'll say, he's a general. Let him beat himself up. But if he turns out to be a sergeant or a private, I'm going to go up and just say, stop doing that. Stop beating yourself up. It's not that big a deal. This guy doesn't stop. So we go on, Rabbi Schranz, and there's so much fighting. And even in the synagogue, we were going down to the ground, holding our head. Sometimes I was just holding the table. It was very dangerous. So Rabbi Schranz says we're going to take another break. Now, I don't know if it's because it was 130 degree temperature. I don't know if it's because I was fasting. I don't know what happened. But when he said, I'm going to take another break, I literally left the back of the synagogue, went up to the front, literally stood next to the guy, banging, 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 banging. And I just started chuckling like he was. And I just said to him, oh my gosh, what did you do so wrong? And he just stopped. And he took his Moxer, his prayer book, and he closed it, and he put it down. And he takes his tallis and he goes like this with both hands and he says to me, you don't want to know. And there was so many explosions. I said, I want every detail. And that's how I got married. That's the man. That's the man I ended up getting married to. Now, I want to tell you something very interesting. Isn't that interesting? So I want to tell you something. I'm going to take a break for a second. I want to tell you about him. And then I'm going to go back to my speech. I know, my friend Rabbi Brisky says, you'll never meet a man in Iraq. And sure enough, in the Garden of Eden, I met my husband on the Shabbat of Shabbats. I always tell my husband, we have to stay together. This is the best